Okay, Poonam. Now we're going to continue with the session on managing project cost, which was related to monitor and review project costs. Now, as I said, the project monitoring the project cost is an important part of making sure how we can keep the project cost within the required budgets. So, what is important for everyone or as a cost controller is to keep monitoring how your costs is behaving in comparison to your planned cost. So, basically in the area of review and monitor cost, you people are employing various tools to monitor this and uh, and analyze the cost performance. So, for example, now if you are already processing, you're going through a project, and you have planned a certain budget for that project, and say after 6 months down the line, you want to find out how your cost is behaving, what is the performance of your project as far as the cost is concerned. You basically are using simple mathematical tools to figure out what is the performance of the expenses. So, has anyone heard about cost variance? Because there is a various formulas or calculations which give you an idea how your project is behaving as far as the returns are concerned. So, has anyone heard about earned value system or something called as schedule variance or CPI? No. Have you heard, Poonam? Okay. No. Okay. So what happens is in a project, if say you have spent $50,000 to start a project, you as a cost controller will always want to know if your expense, if the money you spent is getting you the returns or not in the same proportion. So say 3 months down the line, if you want to know if say out of 50,000 on the whole project, say if you have already spent 20,000 3 months down the line, and you want to know if you have got the returns of that 20,000 in the same manner you had planned for. So what you would do is a simple exercise like where you would find out this is called as the earned value for the project at that point of time. So this earned value basically in simpler English would mean what is the performance, what is the value you have obtained on the project in respect to what you have spent. So say for example, say 2 months or 3 months down the line, if you have spent 20,000, it's a simple exercise where you find out how much portion of the work has been completed, and then the percentage of work that is completed gives you the percentage of the earned value on that project. So supposing if you spend 20,000 halfway at certain point of time, and you figure out which is basically around say if the total project is worth 100,000 and you have spent 20,000 and you want to find out what is the earned value, you would obviously find out what is the percentage of work completed on the job. Now supposing you have finished 25% of the job in that amount of money. Obviously, this means that you have earned a value of 25% on the project with a investment of 20% only. So in that case, this means that for an investment of 20,000, you have got an earned value of 25,000. So this just means that you have earned more than what you have spent. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So in the same way, there are other other factors also affecting all this, and there are other ways to find out the performance of your cost. So there is there's another way to find out your cost performance, which is called as CPI, which is also called as the full form of CPI is cost performance index. Now this cost performance index basically is defined as the ratio between the earned value to the planned value. So say for example in this project where I just said the total worth of the project was say 100,000 and you have spent 20,000, okay, and after say getting your returns inputs from the floor, you find out that the work that you have completed is around like say 25%, okay, 25%. So what would happen? So basically your CPI is equal to the earned value upon the planned value. Am I correct? So as you can see in the printouts, you can see that if this is the if the project is worth 100,000 and you are getting a return of 25,000 to an investment of 20,000, your cost performance index is equal to the is equal to the is equal to the this is equal to the earned value upon the planned value, right?
Yes.
So you can see the earned value at the moment is 25,000, right?
Mm.
And your planned value over here, because it is only 20 at this point of time, 20%, so your planned value was of 20,000, right? So your cost performance index would be 25 over 20, which gives you more than 1. So the idea is, so now if the value of CPI comes to be more than 1, for example, this would simply mean that you have earned more value on your investment than what you have spent on it. If the value of CPI is 1, that would mean you have earned enough, as much value as you have spent. And if the value is less than 1, this simply means that you have earned less value than what you spent. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now there is another formula for figuring out the performance of the cost or the spend expenses that you've done, which also gives you the idea on the performance of the schedule, which is also called the schedule performance index, and which is more or less similar in lines to this cost performance index. Now see, to monitor and review, basically these are not the only tools. Basically the idea about monitoring and reviewing the cost is about keeping track of how your project is performing in relation to what you are spending on that, right? And basically, as I said, for a particular budget which is chalked out for a project, you not always the entire budget is released for the completion of the job. There is a certain portion of the budget left out for the management side. There is a certain percentage left out for the execution side. There is and there is percentage of budget left out for the quality side. So in fact the total performance should be gauged only after accounting for all these factors. If you are aware, there are other factors as well in the performance, such as the taxes, such as your logistics. You've got other areas of expenses which you don't see in the immediate run, but they come down to you ultimately by direct or indirect costs. So as I mentioned, the direct cost basically would be something like the cost which is associated to your labor, to your materials, the machines, okay. And what could be an example of indirect cost, anyone? Yes, do you have some idea? Yourself? Okay. Okay. So see, I give you an example of indirect cost. Say something which is related to logistics. Now that is an indirect cost, isn't that so? Now something which is related to quality services, even that is kind of indirect costs. So when you are trying to understand the performance of your entire project with relation to what you spend, you have to take into account all the indirect costs as well. Okay. Now see, as you can see in your handouts, I have given you a cost breakup of a standard of a dummy project, which is basically about construction of a housing project. So it's called Akim housing. Now if you look on the page number 7 on your handouts, you can see on that clearly that there is a Gantt chart made for this project, and which shows you us how the work the activities are broken down in that project, or a housing project, Acme house, a housing building project. And you can see how the cost is associated with that activity is put down on that Gantt chart. So as you can see, the cost which is given for the month of January is incorporates, gives clearly that Gantt chart shows you clearly what all activities were supposed planned to be done in January and what were the costs associated. In the same way, so the cost which is associated through the work that is done in February is also shown, March, and so on. So what happens is in this kind of schedule, you know how much cost is to be put to what all activities and what is the planning for the expense of the cost. So this is the way you can create a schedule baseline for your budget in whatever currencies you supposing to plan your budget for. Okay. Now, has anyone heard about the cost budget base, contract budget base, and performance measurement baseline? Yourself? Okay, tell me. Supposing you have a budget chalked out for your small project of making a house, and you want to measure how is your expenses is behaving on in comparison to all the work that you are expecting to complete. So what is the simple way you would want to track the expenses? Okay, so see, what I'll suggest is, of course you'll maintain a spreadsheet. You will keep a record of all the expenses that is going on into your activities, but what basically will happen is you will still keep a distribution of the budget to the actual work, and then there will be other small costs which is associated to the council, council, this things like the permits and all sort of things. So contract budget base is something when you put the job on a contract, okay, and there has to be a lot of ifs and buts associated with it. So what really, when you're monitoring jobs which are on a contract basis, you have to allow and consider what are the terms and conditions and whether all the terms and conditions have been met or not. Okay. So this is about finding out the contract base cost and the performance measurement baseline. I would want you guys to do a simple exercise of estimating the cost to estimating the cost for a dummy project, which is can be like a swimming pool or whatever, So maybe I'll give you the plan for that, and in the coming days you can kind of try to do a scheduling for the cost on that project, okay, for us. Now, so in this session we have understood what are the key points we have understood. Basically, we have understood how to determine the budget in the first session, and we have understood how we are going to monitor and review the cost on the second session. Okay. So in monitoring and controlling the cost, basically you are understanding how to keep a track of the variations in cost.
Yes.
The variations can come through the variation in schedule or the variation in quality. Okay.
Yeah.
Beside that, you can you would want to then allocate budget for the variation. You have learned how we are going to allocate budget for the variation. Then what you have learned is the various tools that you use to monitor and analyze the cost performance or the budget performance. The tools were something like the schedule variance, the cost variance, and you understood what is CPI, and you understood what is SPI, which is the schedule performance index. Okay. So basically, as I said, your cost performance variation and your cost variance is basically the difference in what you have spent and what you have